I guess the thing that really burns me up when people say, "Oh, was a myth," is that the bios, the four Gospels, Acts, however you want to view Acts. I don't put so much weight on Acts. The letters of Paul, not only the undisputed letters of Paul, but even the pastorals, as well as these other strange epistles, like the ones 1st and 2nd Peter, 2nd and 3rd John, the Apocalypse John, and then you have the outside works like Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas, the Didache, and then the later stuff, the First Clement, that's from AD 98, and then the epistles of the letters of 7 letters of Irenaeus, that are from 105 to 115, as well as the cult of Christians getting mentioned by the Jews, the Greeks, the Romans, is that it's the simplest explanation is the easiest. There's a guy named Jesus who was crucified. He was the founder of this cult, and it grew. The Christianity had some basic tenets that people were drawn to, and this religion grew. And there is that, but there's also the fact that when you read the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of John, even Luke and Matthew, I mean, I can spot the parts of Matthew that were just it's a hack job that were just plunged in there. There's 5 parts that are just inserted, and Matthew flows a lot better without those insertions. But there's a lot of embarrassment factor in there. There's a lot of throwaway lines, and then not to mention that they speak of things that after AD 70, when the temple was destroyed and a lot of the surrounding area was destroyed, nobody knew about until archaeological digs, like the idea of building a vineyard and erecting a watchtower. People thought that was something from the medieval period. What watchtower? They thought that was something from like the 100 Years' War. It must have been inserted in the 13 or 1400s, you know? No, they actually found it, and they found that was the usual way of doing things. But if you've ever, or if you're accustomed to reading ancient documents, especially the Gospel of Mark, it's extremely mundane. Same thing with John, or even any of the Gospels. I mean, yeah, sure, you got this sorcerer from Nazareth doing stuff, but besides that, it's very mundane. You got this family, you know, coming in, and they think he's crazy, and then there's all these other troubles. Acts reads the same way. Acts is kind of boring. Oh, this guy has to go home because he has a sick mother. I mean, it's and the thing is that the writers of these works believed that there was a guy named Jesus who was crucified. Not only are they writing this stuff, but they're putting in stuff that wouldn't jive with a consistent theology. If you were creating a religion or a god, you wouldn't put in stuff that would embarrass the hell out of it, or be unappealing. One, getting crucified, well, getting beaten to a pulp and getting crucified. 2, his family believing he's insane. being from the lowest caste. I mean, he's a northerner. He's a northern Israelite. I talk about him being a Samaritan, but he's actually not a Samaritan. He's a Israelite from the north, a Jew, but not a Samaritan. So he's the lowest of the low. Yeah, he hangs around with tax collectors and prostitutes, the traitors, and yet among his ranks he has zealots and Sicarii, violent men, and fishermen. He's a stone worker who goes around with fishermen, gets crucified, and all of his apostles are cowards. They run away. There's too many facts of embarrassment, and there's too many throwaway lines, just mundane stuff that you look at and you're like, well, what? I mean, one of his miracles in Mark doesn't work, so he has to try again, and then it works. He tries to heal a guy's sight, it only partially works, and then he tries again. This doesn't reflect anything that we see of like Dionysus or any of the other so-called messiahs. He wasn't a warrior. Everybody misunderstood what the hell he was talking about. He went around talking in parables. To this day, people argue about his parables. What the hell did they actually mean? I mean, he was a nobody. He was a nobody that people thought was crazy. But he said certain things that really caught on to people. And it was probably his prediction of the temple being destroyed that really caused Christianity to flourish. And then probably the cataclysm at Pompeii and Herculaneum. It probably had to do with the series of natural disasters that really jettisoned Christianity across the world. But yeah, it confounds me that somebody can pick up those books and read them not devotionally, just read them as they are, as ancient biographies and ancient epistles. Obviously, I don't think Peter wrote 1st or 2nd Peter. I believe he had a hand in Mark. But, and yeah, again, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Who the hell are these people? The reason why I think Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke, and John wrote John is because there's who the hell's who's Mark? Who's Matthew? These are of no importance in the stories. Not to mention that the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Matthew are known by their names. They're not ever called anything else, from Ethiopia to Russia, from Ireland to India. And nobody had complete control over any of the 27 books at any time, with the exception maybe of the Apocalypse of John, which I think is, again, another early work. I believe it's completely anti-Pauline. I think it's blatantly anti-Pauline.